Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Torelli. I'm the chairman of the Orange County IDA, and I'd like to open this special meeting on Tuesday, June 1st, 2021. With that, I'd like everybody to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. We can start. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. This special meeting doesn't have a formalized agenda, but some of the topics that we'll be going over today is I'll be giving a brief report about the status of the Orange County IDA, some of the current topics that we're working on, and some of the topics that we'll have upcoming. And then our County Executive, Steve Newhouse, will be giving an update or welcoming us to the building, and then we'll be having an open discussion. So with that,
roll call?
Yes, roll call. Thank you.
Michael Torelli?
Present.
John Dowdett?
Present.
Leslie Pieri?
Present.
Paul Ruskevich?
Present.
Vincent Odock, remotely? You there, doctor? Okay. You want to wave your hand? Okay, right. And we also have President, County Executive Steve Newhouse, County Attorney Langdon Chapman, Senators Mike Martucci and James Skoufis, and some other members in the audience, including Legislator Jim O'Donnell. That's it.
Perfect. And Vince, congratulations on the birth of your granddaughter. Congratulations. Okay. Normally, when we have our meetings, the first item on any agenda after we get through some of the formalities is to talk about our compliance and our transparency. As you know, this board, as presently construed, has been in office for about 2.5 months. And we've always led all of our meetings, including our special meetings, with this topic. Right now, we're very glad to say we're in full compliance with the Orange County District Attorney and the Orange County Legislature's information requests. This has taken hundreds of man hours by staff, and I want to particularly thank all the staff that have put together everything that has been asked of them over the last 2.5 months. So thank you, and please relay that to the rest of the staff if they're not already listening. Second on the agenda, or the second topic, as you know, we've changed stuff up. The board, as it's presently put together, has some limitations for daytime meetings. So we've established our regularly scheduled meetings. They'll be scheduled the third Tuesday of every month at 5 p.m. And those are for everyone to look at, and those are in the schedule for the foreseeable future. We do supplement that with special meetings like the one today, which we try to do when it's convenient for board members, obviously for a quorum, and then for guests. So quick updates in regards to the Orange County IDA, and we've talked about this before. As you know, we've said this, we're basically wearing two hats. We're wearing a project hat and a board/management hat. And in that instance, we'd like to talk about both briefly to give updates to the senators as well as to the general public. As you know, on the project front, Orange County is open for business. We have had some great success in the 2.5 months that we've been on this board. As you know, we've had new projects like GTI, or Green Thumb Industries, coming to Warwick, which we passed the resolutions and finalized up everything that the IDA can afford them in regards to economic development assistance. We're also working on affordable housing projects in the town of Walk Hill and assisting them. That's an existing project that's already built, but going through a renovation and trying to keep that project as affordable as possible. And we're also assisting healthcare facilities throughout Orange County with either restructuring debt or working with them on the different nuances that they have from their previous relationships with the Orange County IDA. We've also wear a different hat when it comes down to managing the IDA. And what I say by that is that we're really putting together a bunch of procedures and policies so that we can move forward in the same direction and all the while being fully transparent. As you noticed during our last meeting, we put together and started a very robust payment/voucher system in place. As you know, with this board so far, we've only allowed the full board to approve any type of spending that has happened since we came in. This has resulted in at least a $1.5 million in annual expense reduction to date, with potentially more to come. Some of the stuff that will be upcoming, and we'll talk about it in particular at our next meeting, which is the third Tuesday in June, is that we've already asked staff to start drafting and working with council a model ethics policy, as well as a model conflict of interest policy. And those ones will be distributed as part of the board packet coming up, and for us to take a look at and potentially even vote on this upcoming regularly scheduled meeting. We also are talking, and we'll be talking at our June meeting about personnel. While it's still to be determined, while we're doing I'll say it, a restructuring and a / reorganization, this will begin in June with the focus on coming up with which positions are going to be needed for the Orange County IDA, which type of searches we may want to do, the consultants that we might want to retain and or go out for and get their assistance with. And we look forward to starting those discussions as part of our board packet, but more importantly, in some detailed conversations at our June meeting. We've already had some of them already, but we need to more formalize them. The goal there is that we would have this completed by the end of this fiscal year. Also upcoming, probably more along the lines of the July board meeting, is we'll be looking at our half-year budget analysis. We want to compare what our actuals are through the first 6 months as compared to what was budgeted for in the 2021 budget. We have some significant things that have changed since then, both on the expense side and on the revenue side. We want to make sure that if we have to adjust anything, we have a focus on the finances as well. Lastly, as we want to say, we are ready, willing, and able. We've used that term a couple different times now, and Orange County is open for business, whether it's on existing projects or projects that we've assisted in the past. And we've had some great wins and some success in the past, but more importantly, we look forward to it in the future. We know that Orange County has the land, and we know that it has the infrastructure to allow for things like this to happen. And with that, I'd like to turn this over to the county executive for some remarks, and then we can have an open discussion about anything you like.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the 5 of you for doing this, first and foremost, because, from what I'm seeing and what's coming out more and more, it seems like it's a real mess that you guys have inherited. And you guys have all come from different areas, so I appreciate everybody's time to clean up the mess and try to professionalize this. The 2 senators sitting next to me and I work very close together, and they're good men, and we have been concerned watching this just like you have when the first revelations were brought up at legislative meetings back in March that certain things were going wrong, and there's all sorts of accusations going out there. $13 million has gone down to $6 million in the bank. What was the cost-benefit analysis of all that money that was spent? So there's been a lot of concern to us. As a county executive, this is my 8th year as county executive, I have never been consulted from the legislature with members until now, who the makeup of the IDA is. Unlike many other boards that we have in Orange County, the county executive appoints the members, the legislature adopts them. I'm not saying that they should be done this way, but the way that the makeup of the board is prior to you has really been just an exclusively legislative action. And I bring that up as 2 weeks ago, we just sat here with Orange County Community College, which was in financial disarray for the last 4 or 5 years. I now appointed new members because I was a new county executive that were not politically connected, even though I was getting a lot of pressure to appoint Republicans and this and the other thing. We appointed a lot of good people, men and women on there. That is this the first year that I've been county executive, at 8 years that they're coming to the legislature with a 0% increase in their budget. And so I'm very proud of that operation, and they've turned it around, much like you guys are starting to do here now. Some of the things that I'm concerned about, and I'm going to just defer it over to my colleagues in a minute, is, and this might not be you guys, this might be a legislative function on fixing how they appoint people, but I've always been deeply concerned having elected officials on the IDA board. And they're like, well, it's not favoritism. It just adds that perception, and perception is everything in our business. The other thing I was concerned about is, people that have conflicts of interest, which have really, in my opinion, always plagued the IDA. And look, I know you want to, there's a delicate balance between bringing professional people in and at the same time people that are familiar with the industry, but at the same time not be conflicted out. But, with the 5 members I see here today that have already been able to fix this thing, that is actually shown that that's been a success. So I am, as a county executive, I know IDAs are part of the economic tools, but It's also not a required tool. And I do appreciate what you're doing, and I understand, and I think you guys understand the role too. I've had my problems with the IDA in the past. When I was a town supervisor in Chester, one could say it's one of the reasons why I ran for county executive. I thought that they were giving excessive benefits out at sometimes. And anybody that showed up at the door would get an application, and they file a fee, in my opinion, in the past, and then they would automatically get benefits. And that is one of the things that the three of us have been fighting against. We're not trying to be confrontational, but we want to make sure, because at the end of the day, I think we all consider, at least the three of us here, speaking for my team here, my friends here, is that this is taxpayer money. There's been this argument in the past. It's not really taxpayer money. It's a pass-through, and it comes on there. But I think you guys realize it too. And in some sense, the money that's being deflected that would have been paid to that local government would have been money that would have been going to that local community. And that's what, if you don't want to call it directly taxpayer money, indirectly, whatever, that's how we treat it. And again, we appreciate everything. You guys stepping up. None of you guys wanted to do this. I know that. And I'm sure a lot of you are regretting taking the phone call and saying, you'd be a great guy to, and this might be inappropriate to say, but when people ask me what's going on with the IDA, because now you have at least two, maybe more of my staff, temporary scientists, I feel like Harvey Keitel in Pulp Fiction as the wolf coming to fix a disaster mess. And at the end of the day, as it stands today, we're handing this back to the legislative process. And I'm not trying to pick on Jimmy O'Donnell's the guy that blew the whistle on the stuff that was going on here. I'm not trying to beat the legislature up on this, but I am hoping, and I think you guys are too, you guys are working hard, that this is not handed back to be put on with a bunch of politically connected people and then just back in the same mess again years down the line. So with that, I'll defer down to Senator Martucci and Senator Skoufis, who have been working with me on this in the beginning, like watching it, saying, what's going on here?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. So look, I Steve said a lot of those from me to all of you, Mike and John and Leslie and Dr. Oda, there in the street, thank you for doing this, because I know you're walking into an absolute total mess, and the pay and benefits for taking this on are very poor. And by the way, the same has to be said about the work that Bill's doing and the work that Langdon's doing, because, frankly, the pay and benefits are very poor for you too. And I say that jokingly, but for the people that are watching, everyone here is doing this for free. And I realize that nobody in this room created this mess, but everybody in this room is committed to trying to fix it. And I think that's really what we come to you with. Look, I know that the county has been talking about kind of from day one, this idea that 90 to 120 days. You're looking to get this thing fixed up and back out in its own in 90 to 120 days. So I think some of the questions we have is just, where are we on that time frame, and how do we, in any way, if we can, be helpful to make sure that that happens in that time frame, because I think that's critical. And, look, I think we all sit here looking for reforms, right? There's nobody in this room that would disagree that there isn't a need to make change. And, James is here because he's really been working on IDAs from a statewide perspective for the last 3 years. You're on your third year now. I'm new to the game. I'm 160 days into my job. But I think that this is an opportunity to bring some of these ideas to you. I've joined James in supporting a great number of these that he's going to talk about, some of which are on the kind of the cusp of passing, and I think you can talk a little bit more about that. But we expect these to be codified in law here in New York very soon. So I think it's an opportunity for this board to open your mind to adopt some of these perhaps voluntarily, which would be steps in the right direction. Think about how these fit. Some of them aren't really things for you to decide. It's more of a county legislature type of thing. Steve talked about appointments as one example of that. So I think our idea is to offer these suggestions, engage in a conversation about them, and let you know that we're here to help. That's ultimately where this is. Because like I said, I want to be clear that I thank you for your service. I thank you for doing what you're doing. I thank you, Steve, for kicking up your staff and taking them off of all the other jobs that they're doing. Because frankly, Langdon and Bill and others have other things to do. So I appreciate you having us today, and I appreciate you, having this conversation. Because I think it's important. It's a step in the right direction. Because ultimately, what I'm looking for is I want businesses, when they think about coming to Orange County, to have tremendous faith in our process, and I want the public to have tremendous faith in our process. I'm somebody who's blessed to create 600 jobs right here in Orange County. I didn't use an idea to do that because I was blessed to have projects where I didn't need support, direct support in terms of making that happen. But some projects do. So I think that, as Steve said, it's an important tool. And I'm really coming at it from the perspective of we can be a change agent together to restore public trust and to really drill in on a process, I think, that will make economic development in this country stronger.
Yeah, no, I appreciate everything that was said, and as Steve noted, we are working just not on this, but on a number of issues very well together of late, and I want to thank the board here. You know, you probably all know, my reputation probably precedes me a little bit when it comes to IDA stuff, but I've been banging on the door here for the better part of the 9 years I've been in the state legislature, and I've offered to meet with the Orange County IDA board many times, and this is the first time that I've been welcomed in with friends. And, you know, I used to say that school board members were the most thankless jobs in Orange County. That's probably not true. And the last board would attest to the fact that that it's not true, that you all have probably the most thankless jobs in public service. So look, you know, I obviously have a history with scrutinizing many applications. You have probably one of the most pro-business state senators in New York here, and we're aligned on just about everything I'm about to share. And Steve, pro-business reputation, but similarly, you know, has a lot of concerns here. And, you know, this is an attempt for us to just open a dialogue and try and work together to get to, I think, the common goal of restoring that public confidence in the Orange County IDA. This was dropped in your lap. This is not in any way, shape, or form what we're about to talk about, like a blame game. We're not trying to point fingers at all because you're brand new. But I think we all have the shared goal of trying to restore that public confidence in the work that you all do. And I would strenuously argue and agree that these are public dollars. I wouldn't even characterize them as indirect public dollars. These are direct subsidies that impact the bottom line of school districts, towns, villages, cities, the county. And so look, you know, Steve mentioned, actually before I even get to that, there are a bunch of bills that are going to pass the Senate on Thursday of this week. There are about, I think, a dozen public authority reform bills, many of which are IDA specific, some of which are sort of broadly public authority reforms that include IDA operations. But many of the things that we're going to talk about are going to be passing. And, you know, one of the things that we wanted to get in here and talk to you about is, I think, an easy way to restore some of that public trust is to get ahead of these things, some of which are going to be happening regardless of whether you like it or not. And be out there saying, we're not even going to wait for the governor to sign these into law. We're doing them ourselves because the right thing to do. I mean, if you don't do them, many of them are going to happen anyway. So, you know, Steve mentioned elected officials. That's one of the bills passing Thursday. No elected officials on IDA boards. And present company accepted. You know, this is not directed at Paul or anybody specifically, but it's an inherent conflict of interest when you have elected officials on an IDA board. There are countless times, including here locally, where you've had members of IDA boards run as candidates for elective office, then open up the Rolodex for all the applicants they gave out taxpayer funds to remember that, you know, 10-year pilot I gave you 5 years ago? I'm running for X office now. I could use $5,000 in a campaign contribution. There's an inherent conflict of interest there. That's an easy one in my mind. I don't know, this is maybe a Langdon question, I don't know if you all can address that in your IDA bylaws directly, or if that is something that does have to come, if not, you know, enacted statewide, if that is something that would have to come through a change to the legislative appointment process. But in my mind, that's an easy one. The fundamental sort of operational question, and you touched on it, Mike, before, is like, what's the plan in terms of like staffing up the IDA, right? And Bill and I know each other for a long time, less so Langdon and I, but you know, they have other jobs to do. And quite frankly, and I'll be, you know, transparent, and I've, you know, told this to Steve and to Mike, you know, yes, there's no doubt the county and through the county exec's office is like trying to basically provide a runway to you all to get to where you need to be, and there's no avoiding that. I think it's important that there were these appointments, I don't know if they're appointments or whatever they're characterized as, but Bill and Langdon, some finance folks, coming to the idea, there needs to be that runway. But there also, in my opinion, needs to be a separation between what Bill does as his full-time job as economic development officer, director, whatever your title is, and what happens at the IDA. It's not a sustainable system by which you have a prospective business coming to the Office of Economic Development and meeting with the team there and saying, okay, we're looking at Orange County. Here's what, we need. Here are the incentives that we're considering. And then that team walking down the hallway and saying, okay, follow me to the IDA office, putting on a new hat, and now talking about incentives. There needs to be, in my mind, a separation there. So I don't know what your fiscal year is. Mike, do you have?
It's a January through.
Yeah, so I would encourage, look, I think it's great you're starting in June. I like to think you don't need 6-7 months to find permanent staff here. Hopefully it can be in that 30-60 days that Mike talked about, because there are going to be a lot of businesses walking through that county economic development office over the next 6-7 months. And, I think there does need to be that separation there. And so
Even just the appearance is what we're saying. So, like you said, we've worked with, it's nothing against Bill or Langdon, and this popped up in what is really frankly an emergency.
Yeah.
We're in an emergency situation now. And obviously I think it's going to get uglier. I think we all know that. And, not on your part, but what the findings are. We know there's criminal investigations going on right now. So we're all trying to make this, one of the things, and I'm not trying to cut James off, is transparency, and not your problem. I have no idea what the hell is going on, and I'm the county executive with a lot of these projects, and it was run more like a CIA clandestine operation rather than a public. And then it's again not your guys' fault, but we want to make a better organization here, so the taxpayers ultimately know that the squeeze. That the juice is worth the squeeze, which is it's on their backs. So sorry, James.
No.
But there's also a balancing act, right, in relation to this separation. And I understand where James is coming from, and I understand the situation that we're in. There's also a balancing act, right? And the idea is the balancing act weighs employees and then human resources and ethics oversight. As a volunteer board with everyone having full-time jobs, it's tough for a board to be the HR policy person and or the ethics policy person. You just don't have enough time. So while there's pros and cons, having someone at the county on the interim side brings with it that oversight almost instantaneously with county ethics
and we get that.
County
We're
HR.
behind it.
So, when you have that balancing act, that's a question that this board has and will continue to have, because I just don't know if our bandwidth is big enough to fully be able to do that. And that's a concern of mine. I think it's a concern of ours, is at what point do we rely on people who know this, who know the HR stuff in the state, or who know the ethics stuff of the state at the state level. Granted, we're all have the oversight of the ABO, we do our trainings and those type of things, but I've yet to meet anybody from that.
Yeah.
Just like you said, I've never, we did a training, but other than that, never talked to them or never had a discussion with them. And maybe there is some oversight maybe on the compliance side or on the training side. But on the day-to-day side, I see that being a weakness in the state. And it's probably not just for our idea, it's probably for every idea.
I think once you guys get an director or whatever you call it, and a staff member that works and reports directly to you, works for you, not for the county, not for anybody else, and then council eventually, then you guys will be able to start moving away on your own, back on your own again. But I think that's something I hope that's what that was you guys were pushing about for your June meeting, where you said, let's talk about those things. The other thing is transparency, just like, and again, this is not, you guys are fixing this mess. This is just our opinions from coming from the outside. We have dialogues on this, so we talk about this, but what really went into some of these projects, and where can you find that information? How much were some of these people making? Unfortunately, the criminal investigation is going to come out with where that went to. And I think that's something that we could all strive to get to in the future. But I don't think anybody's mad at you for having, or angry to having Bill Fioravanti on now. Bill's one of the fixers with you. You guys are fixers. You guys are fixing a problem that the legislature addressed and is selected the five of you to be part of that fixing team. But we're just wanting to know what's the end plan, what's the game plan, and I think you started to go on that.
And to the extent that we could be helpful, if you're looking for guidance or a day-long training seminar, whatever from the ABO, I speak with Jeff Perlman and them with some regularity, and I'm sure that we could set something up if that's something you're looking to do. So I just throw that out there.
And Mike, I don't know if there's, like, I tell my staff, anytime there's a problem, any department head, even the county attorney and myself, let's call her, what's going on with the other counties? Like, is there some good role model counties, maybe good IDAs that have similar situations? I don't know. Like, we have the Association of Counties. Maybe they'd be able to tune us into some of the top 5 that are respected, that are looking with no drama going on. And that's what I tell my county my staff. I'm like, call up the health department up and, you know, who you trust. So that might be a good, and I'll ask Steve Aquario from the Association of Counties if he's got like a contact for the top 5 similar sized IDAs that are well respected.
And that's a good segue. You know, one of the bigger items that we worked on this. This isn't just like the Scoofish list, right? So we workshopped, you know, these ideas before this meeting. And one of the bigger ones, speaking of what other IDAs are doing, I think one of the best IDAs in the state is Rockland County. One of the reasons why they have an excellent IDA is because they're one of the only IDAs that gives a formal seat at the table to the taxing jurisdictions before pilots are issued. And it's always struck me as very strange that an IDA can, usually county IDAs, but sometimes municipal IDAs, can go into a county and the elected officials who represent the constituents there have no say in what the pilot is. And the IDA says, okay, here's the tax break that we're going to give you in your town or in your village or your wherever. There's a public hearing. I see Jim O'Donnell, you're shaking your head. There's a public hearing involved. And I understand what the informal process is the Orange County IDA has followed. But there is no formal process for a town board, a village board, a city council, a school district in Orange County. In Rockland County, Jim, please. In Rockland County, here's what happens. Rockland County IDA induces a pilot up to X dollars. We are allowing a pilot to go up to X dollars for this project. And then that applicant goes and negotiates with the taxing jurisdictions, and they work as a team. It's not like they've got to win everyone over independently. They sit down with the school administration, town supervisor, if there's the village mayor, and they negotiate up to that X dollar pilot amount what payments in lieu of taxes are going to be paid for that project in that community. And there's a couple things. One, there's buy-in. There's almost never, I can't think of a single pilot application that got across the finish line that was controversial in Rockland County. Not one in my 9 years. Meanwhile here, you know, there's always seemingly a controversial pilot application going on. So there's buy-in immediately when you've got a town, a village, a school district signing off, we think this is a fair deal. Whereas opposed here in Orange County, it's here's what we think the fair deal is for you.
Now wouldn't that post jurisdiction? I mean, granted, we're an IDA for the county, 816 square miles. And there's some other IDAs within our jurisdiction. We'll just leave that off to the side. But I've been at some of those meetings where people uneducated, who are educated people, have no idea what a pilot is. They are totally cool, especially when it comes to, say, like a school board level, and they think it's money that they're not getting, where it's money that they are getting, unless that project doesn't come. But you know, so it's. I think there needs to be an education process. If that ends up becoming a state requirement, I think the school board should have to go through an ABO class about what a pilot is and what it means when you say no. Because I think what it'll turn whether if it's the Office of Economic Development or a private not-for-profit who does business attraction and retention or a chamber of commerce, it's going to quickly put municipality against municipality. Very quickly.
I've never seen the school board support a project in the county. It's usually the towns. I mean, you take the Amazon
GTI was a perfect example.
Yeah.
GTI was, I mean, we had great support from the town of Warwick and the village of Warwick for the GTI.
What about
But when were they brought into the process? Was it, okay, here's the pilot?
But it was, I mean, they also have, I don't say direct ownership, they have an LBC with the project at hand. So they were a vested, interested party because of the property being acquired from the state. And so that was a little bit different. But
in that case, the property is off the tax rolls, but the project going forward goes back on.
It goes fully back on.
Yeah. So
so it's not cut and dry.
Yeah.
You know,
there's no question about it that people, especially if they're going to be more formally clued into a process like this, there needs to be an educational component to this. No doubt about it. But I would just take one exception to one characterization that you shared, which is, well, it's either, it's the vacant lot that's paying nothing now, or it's the pilot that we're giving. I think a lot of the concern, at least I'll speak for myself, comes from the fact that that is not, I don't view that as the binary choice. In my mind, the argument is that the greatest pilot we can draw from this applicant while still bringing them to the community? That's the question, right? Can we get a better deal, not the deal that is being presented?
And we've seen those change, like Medline
Absolutely.
and Legoland. So, and not criticizing.
And I think that's why you try to have uniform tax exemption
Yeah.
policies. You have certain projects that meet requirements and get a basic ID incentive program. And yet others that are maybe more, that you're looking to do more of. Maybe it's advanced manufacturing or something like that, and they'll get an advanced or a better incentive program. Same thing happens at ESD level. At the Empire State Development, which is the state's economic development arm, they give certain incentives for a project of type A and a better incentives for projects of type B, depending upon what it is. It's very discretionary then in regards to which buckets they fit in. So I think, to be fair, that should be spelled out in your uniform tax exemption policy. So you're not saying that A and A are going to get C and D. You got to be fair. You got to be able to say either they get this or they're eligible to get this or they're not. Those types of things. I mean, and I don't disagree that, locals, the more involvement, the better. I think education is a big part of
The
it.
whole approval process would be, look, you're not going to win everyone, but the two examples, like I said, Legoland, if my recollection is correct, I think they came in with 28-year pilot and they got a 23-year pilot. Bloomfield and Town Board said, not good enough for us when they came with 28 years, and it was negotiated down. Medline came in with a certain amount a year, and there was a lot of pushback from the community and elected officials, and they ended up,
No pilot.
yeah.
For
So-
type B.
But totally different projects.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Yeah, totally different
Of
projects.
course.
Well, we're going to open it up for public just in a minute or so.
Yeah, so let me,
Jason, I could just.
Yeah, please, yeah.
Again, I appreciate you guys coming out here
Yeah.
today, and, this is all brand new to me. I had no idea, what the IDA did, no folks involved in this. I think this is great. I mean,
Yeah.
we have talked about it. This is great for Orange County, and these discussions are great. Business promotion is really important. Maybe I'm somewhat simplifying this, and we've talked to Mike, to where we can get smart people in the room, get a codified sense of where it almost feels like this group should be the good guys, right? It should all be fought at lower levels amongst really good people, and the discussions come up where everybody gets to pat us on the back as the IDA board, but all the hard work has been done at lower levels. And I'm not sure how you get there at this piece, but a really smart person told me when I did agree to this is ask questions, please. Excellent. So,
Triple exclamation point.
So we did not get a lot of answers at all, really. We were, they were bad, they were non-committal, or we got zero. So Langdon's folks and Karen have been incredibly helpful in getting us answers, right? So our answers are still being guessed. We don't know what we don't know. I mean, 90 to 120 days would be ideal. I don't know if it's going to get there in that 90 to 120 days, right? Bill's been incredible, right? And the folks over at that are still part of, the previous have been helpful. So I think this is really good. I know Paul and Jimmy have had a really big part in getting, the group together here. So I think this is incredibly constructive, but we don't have a set, and I don't want to speak for Mike or Leslie, we don't have a set dynamic where, hey, this is where we're going to do it. I don't even know if we scratched the surface. So I'm encouraged about these conversations. I'm encouraged about having the experience of these folks in the building, because I think there's a huge opportunity out there. I was staggered by the numbers that we saw in the previous balance sheets. $17 million is a lot of money, and even the 5 or 6 that's left, I think we can do a lot of good with this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really encouraged. I know we've gotten to some really good places. I know we have a big offsite we're planning on getting to good places. So I hope you guys don't think that we have any preconceived notions as to what we expect this to be, because I certainly don't. I think this is really constructive, but I was shocked at what we saw. I was shocked at what we found. The numbers are staggering. Langdon and Karen have been incredible. Bill have been incredible. So I thank them, and I thank all of you. So this is encouraging to me, and I think it's a really good thing. I think it's a really
And
good
that's
thing.
what, we talk and we meet and we on a regular basis on different topics, and the top topic of the speech, they're like, what the hell's going on? Have you heard it? just needed these guys. So that's really, we're coming in with some of our thoughts and recommendations, things that are coming down the pipe, regardless with the state, because the state's looking to make reforms. But we also want to see what's going on with you, and anything we can do to help you, or you can do to help us, or your input. You know, we're not going to agree on everything. We all know, even we don't agree on it, believe it or not. But you know, that's why this is not a confrontational, you know.
Well, and I get it. And John, I get that you might be at the agency in terms of kind of, first getting through the muck. But I think that the good part is that, listen, you're, you know, I'm encouraging you that you're open to these things. I think that as you begin to, you know, develop this more, certainly, I'm sure James is going to come back, and I am too, you know, to get these, because these might be a little in the weeds now, but I think it's important to get them out there, you know what I mean, and certainly get a sense of if you have, you know, what your appetite is, so to speak, for these things.
It's great. I mean, the purpose of the IDA, use all the terms we talked about, right? Conflict of interest and promotion of business in Orange County. So I think the framework is here. This is exciting for me. Mike runs a huge wealth of knowledge. So we really rely on him for an awful lot of this. And he's been doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and I know Paul is too. So you know, this is exciting for me, and as a Orange County person whose family lives here and business is here, I think this is great.
Likewise, and we appreciate the dialogue and the opportunity. So thank you. You know, Mike, you mentioned the UTEC, the Uniform Tax Policy. That's one of the items here. And you mentioned, or we talked about Medline. You know, there was a story a few months ago in the Record and LoHUD about how hot the market is for warehouses in the lower Mid-Hudson Valley. Red hot. The realtors cannot keep up with the demand of folks looking for distribution hubs. And here we are, despite sort of my best effort on Medline, we're sort of right back on the track that we were before of incentivizing warehouses, Amazon, and there are some others in the pipeline now. My hope was, look, I was not, certainly I wanted to course correct in the Medline application, but my greater hope was that what was resolved there would course correct on warehouses more generally. And when the next warehouse comes in to the Montgomery IDA or wherever, it's, oh, well, Medline didn't need it, so we didn't give it to them. Now, you know, we need to be fair now and consider your application in that same way. But we're right back on that same track. And I fail to understand why we are incentivizing warehouses in Orange County. I fail to understand why we are incentivizing hotels in Orange County. These are types of businesses that are dying to come here. We're not like trying to lure warehouses. Bill and his team in economic development, they're not like down in New York City trying to like grab people to come up and open warehouses. They are coming here because they need distribution hubs here. And so why in the world are we inducing them?
Well, I can try to answer that for you.
And hotels, the same thing. Let me just finish. So I think Woodbury alone has, I think, 5 hotels at the planning board in the queue right now. Why in the world, when we have Woodbury Common, we have Storm King, we have Legoland opening, we have West Point, we have Stewart Airport, especially in Eastern Orange County, why in the world would we give $1 of tax breaks to hotel projects? And so our encouragement would be to take a look at that UTEC. And for industries where, like, we've got all the advantages in the world, whether it be geography or existing other businesses that dictate what else comes here, take a look at that UTEC and think about whether we need to be incentivizing warehouses when realtors can't keep up with the market in Orange and Rockland counties in particular. Go ahead.
I've been about 20 years ago. I'll answer it with one word, right? It's competition. We all have competition, right? If we don't, we're afraid that somebody else may do it, right? That's what it's all about.
I understand.
You know,
Yep.
I mean, there's a reason why a company got a 15-year pilot over in Dutchess County and is building a 633,000 square foot distribution center.
That's Amazon too, right?
And we didn't get it.
We
So you know what?
Yeah.
It's a loss for Orange County, and that sucks, you know, because we wanted those jobs.
How far?
Now, whether we got that one or not, I mean, that's just.
They were never in play here, right?
Was that?
That project was never in
Oh,
play.
sure
here.
it was.
Was it?
Was
How
that?
many miles away is the Montgomery Amazon warehouse from that Dutchess County warehouse?
I
20,
guess 12
15,
miles.
20 minutes.
I can't tell, exactly. I can't tell you, basically every single one of my upstate colleagues in the Senate, they're coming to me because they've seen what's happened in Orange County, Medline, and Amazon. They come to me, oh yeah, Amazon's building one in my district too. Amazon's building one in Erie County too. Amazon's building one in Onondaga County too. And that goes to tell you that that fear is unfounded because they're building one everywhere.
It might be unfounded,
Everywhere.
but that's the fear, right? And the same thing with any type of capital investment, because really, coming into the board, and I'll say this tongue in cheek, I probably had the most experience in economic development out of our board members, being a former regional director and different stuff. So I tried to, instill some of that past knowledge that I knew from the different levels I was at. And it's really about the capital investment to create commercial tax rateables to make it affordable for everybody else. And granted, you have to sprinkle that with the jobs, which we learned from day one, that it's always about trying to create the jobs for everybody that's living here. But the idea is it's really competition. And some of us take this really, really strong. Some of us, not even in this room, take this even stronger than we do, right? So it's like, you almost feel like you lose. If it goes across the border or into a different state, you lose. And you may not, because those jobs are portable. People are going to travel. They're going to, we have an ease of access with our highway infrastructure that you're going to commute to a point. I mean, 39,000 people commute to New York City pre-pandemic from Orange County, right? That's 2010 numbers. So, it's all about the competition. Now, when it comes down to the UTEP, I would say, whether a county adopts that or not, I think they're looking at the state to say what's eligible or not, right? Because the broad interpretations is really what caused all of this. And I'll say that, is that tourism destination, how do you prove it? The back of hand thing for tourism destination is more than 50% of the stuff or people that are going there are not from the area. That's just a broad interpretation. So that's like a be-all, safe, end-all. That's how hotels probably got into this. Distribution centers, it's all about the commercial tax rateables and about trying to keep some of those jobs local if you have a local labor policy type of thing. So I think there's things like that are on the competition side, and if the state doesn't want to incentivize that, they should think about that at the Empire State Development level as well. They do give discretionary grants to these companies. So it's almost like it's eligible, but maybe it shouldn't be eligible. There's a lot of mixed messages, and some areas of the state are going to probably want this a lot more than others. Some have more property than others. So we're all not the same. We're not the same as Rockland County. We have a lot more developable land. We're just, it used to be part of our check.
And it also comes in the factor of wages. Like, 10 years ago, we were like, anybody wants to come here, and you're giving them, and not you, but the pilot agreements to come out there because you do want to keep the jobs. But at some point, what kind of jobs are there? Up until 2 months ago, 50% of all Amazons in the country had 50% of their employees were on some type of federally assisted or state assisted welfare programs. So those aren't good wages in our book. So, and again, this is all new.
You combat that against an 11% unemployment rate in like some more cities.
Absolutely.
So you're like, all right, do you let them in and you try to incentivize it to lower the cost of business so they can create a couple hundred or 1,000 jobs or not?
Yeah.
So it's like, certain jobs are meant for certain people, certain jobs are meant for other people. You have to have the whole gamut. Whether you incentivize them or not, I think it should be a level playing field, because if one county does it and another one does, then that county potentially will lose out.
So I think the danger with what you're talking about in some sense is, I'm not going to actually characterize the middle of nowhere, central New York, may need to induce hotels where we don't. And so the one-size-fit-all state law of, no inducements for hotels, maybe that works here, it would work here, might not work somewhere else. And so and look, if you all cut out hotels from your UTEP, you're not losing hotels anywhere else. People are going to open up a hotel in Woodbury, just right next to Woodbury Common, right?
We sure hope so, because right now it's underserved, right? It's been underserved for the last 50 years. Even prior to Woodbury Commons coming there, just look at West Point graduation, or, even at West Point, 2.6 million people visiting.
It's
been underserved since its
inception. I talked to Supervisor Marr today. He's trying to plan a conference in July, sold out. Yeah. Sold out for weddings and everything else. So
that's demand, right? So potentially demand is there, right? To try to get people to invest is another question, right? since demand is there, that checks off one box. You know, you're not going to build something where there's no demand. Checks off one box. But then you have to find the land, you have to go through the approval process. You know, you have to do that whole process. It's not easy. You know, I mean, I'm not speaking for them, but and whether we induce them or not, you know, I can see the balancing act on either side.
I think over the last 10 years, I've been to ribbon cuttings and so is everybody else here on my side here. And we've seen, and everybody says these jobs are going to be great. But I think going forward, and this might be a prerogative for you that we've never seen before, maybe that the previous boards got this information. I've never seen a cost-benefit analysis. 4 or 5 months ago, in the middle of the pandemic, I'm in Newburgh. I think, Bill, you went the week before me, and we're looking at these little shops and these little buildings. They were nice. The shop owners were nice. I don't know how much investment the IDA had to take of taxpayer money, or whatever the hell we want to call it. James and I call it taxpayer, we'll call it whatever, was put into that. And was the squeeze worth that juice?
Well, that's a big difference between what the Orange County IDA has done and virtually any other IDA. And it was the private sector staffers that were driving that. Well, let's be clear.
Yeah.
I don't want to be here for more than I don't get paid an extra dime to do this. I was here last night preparing for this meeting. I was doing the minutes for this board meeting a couple Monday nights ago at 9 o'clock at night, not home with my lovely wife and kids. But at the end of the day, it was those private sector staffers, and private sector aren't evil. But they were the ones who are pushing this accelerator thing. They're the ones who are pocketing all the cash for this accelerator thing. And that's something different than most of what IDAs across the state do. And just thinking from somebody who's written legislation in Albany for 20 years, you have the Dutchess County thing going, we're going to put a warehouse over here, we're going to incentivize it. If I'm a builder, I can go to Dutchess or I can go to Orange. If Orange isn't going to incentivize and Dutchess says, I'm going to go to Dutchess. Maybe you need to think about, as you develop state laws, a region by region, what should be able to be incentivized and what shouldn't. Because you know what Amazon up in Erie County has? They have an IDA agreement. It was passed February of this year. They might need it more than we need it down here. But Erie County is not the middle of nowhere, and I know you didn't say it was. But we have a lot of similarity to Dutchess. We have a lot of similarity to Rockland. We have a lot of similarity to Putnam. We don't have as much similarity to, Clinton County, perhaps. But not enabling Dutchess versus Orange versus Rockland versus Putnam to play off each other and cannibalize the tax base might make a lot of sense in terms of how you draft state legislation on a regional basis.
So there are two ways to do it. You can do it as you're describing, and it'd be, I think, very difficult to mandate different requirements region by region if you're up in Albany. There's nothing that stops you all from having a meeting with the Dutchess County IDA, the Putnam County IDA, the Ulster County IDA, and developing a series of ceasefires, right? You don't induce this, we're not going to induce this.
And that may be viable. I mean,
Yeah,
look,
why not?
This board,
It's brand new.
you've used the word you, and I know you don't mean this board.
Right.
The prior IDA has incentivized a whole series of different things. Whether this board can work with their colleagues at a regional level, like you have the governor's regional council, where there could be a regional level, that's something worth exploring. All we've been doing for the last 2.5 months is complying with 6 different subpoenas.
Trying to stay focused. I get it.
Trying to not have,
Yeah.
That's good, Steve. Answering questions that are terrible answers. So you made a great point about incentivizing businesses, what it was. To me, the short answer is somebody saw $17 million at the IDA and decided to go use it for their own personal benefit.
Yeah.
That's all I can see here. The county doesn't benefit, the individuals in this room don't benefit, you folks don't benefit, nor do the taxpayers benefit. That's all I see. And it's bad. We haven't even seen the bottom of it. That's exactly what happened. May have been all good intentions initially. Someone incentivized their own personal benefits, $17 million of county taxpayer money. We don't know where the bottom is. We're still figuring it out. I want to get to 122 also, but man, I'd love to do all the things. I want guidance. And where we can get to the point where this is considered a really good group and a great group for Orange County to where everybody wants to be a part of it. There are even 5 people who want this job. This job stinks.
Yeah.
This job stinks. We're going to get better at it, but man, I like this. This is really good. But I think we don't have to do everything. We don't have to do everything.
I've had people call me in the middle of the night. You lost this project. I'm like, no big deal.
That's fine sometimes. If they're trying to rob us, that's fine.
It's a NATO here. You say no, everybody wants in.
Yeah.
We start saying no to folks, they're going to want in. So I agree. Business practice is really important. How we get there, I think it's
Some of them are worth fighting for,
Yeah.
wages, what the ancillary impacts are, to jobs in the tourist industry. There's some big projects coming here, but we've lost some that frankly, I've said to people like Maureen and Bill, and I did after action reports, well, the wait just won't worth it.
No.
Something that's transformational in a positive way to our county, yeah, that's what we're fighting for. But not everybody.
It's about wages, though, either. It's about capital investment.
Yeah.
It's about construction jobs. It's about commercial tax base to lower the cost, the burden on everybody else. So if a municipality wants something or has owned something for something, there's a strong advocate that wants that to happen, whether it's warehousing, whether it's advanced manufacturing. They can zone it, it's home rule. They can do what they want and approve what they want, where they want to do it. But when it comes down to it, it's a lot of people in economic development world, I'll say more than 90%, that's a strong number, are super competitive. They don't want to lose it to somebody else. And that is the hurdle, I think, that this issue has. Because whether you have competition amongst a region, whether you agree or disagree, whether certain industries should be able to be induced or get incentives or not, whether the state economic development is doing it, whether the regional economic development councils are incentivizing it or not. I mean, I believe last time I saw in the Mid-Hudson Regional Economic Development Council study, or in their thing, distribution is part of their goal to get. So, I mean, everything has to be aligned.
I saw that. I wasn't thrilled with it.
Yeah.
I saw it.
So, I mean, but there's a reason why we have interstate highways here. There's a reason why we're, within 5 hours drive time of 77 million people. We're at a good location, and that makes demand happen. So.
And I think having a good board too, because that's what you have a board for. It's just like a planning board or a ZBA.
Yeah.
If you had everything automatic, you wouldn't have those boards.
You wouldn't have it.
But there's
interpretation.
They come with you to an application, and you guys say this makes no sense. As opposed to, I think what James is saying, I'm saying, any hotel that comes here, I'm automatically getting an IDA incentive. That's what I think a lot of people might see. Maybe that's the way it's run. I have no knowledge, honestly, of like an annual report of the Orange County IDA since I've been county executive. They don't serve me. They don't report to me. Anybody that's been on the former IDA board, I said, you're stupid if you want to get on there. It's nothing but trouble. There's no transparency. Honestly, I can't tell you one deal that they made. I think Legoland was, a good one because I know Doug Bloomfield fought for a better incentive. But just in my tenure, I can't talk about it before it or not, but I think that's a big problem. And, now we got this mess on our hands here, and it's not your mess. We're all the fixers, all of us. I mean, Jimmy O'Donnell was passionate about this topic, economic development. He raised the flag on this. And Paul and everything, they've taken corrective action. But as you're saying, 7 subpoenas? 6 subpoenas. And
already got a legislative info.
Yeah. I mean, so there's going to be recommendations probably from some type of judge at some level or a grand jury that's also going to be playing in with what we're recommending, what the state's recommending, what you guys, just by your 5 expertise of being good citizens and running different operations, making your own. Like, look, we should put these in there as well. So let's just
getting back to the board. I think you just said it. You have a good board in place. You have the right procedures in place. You're going to have a strong IDA that's going to do the right thing and bring economic development. Evaluate these projects where they should be. I mean, you can argue about, where I totally agree with you on hotels. I don't know why in the world we're ever doing incentives hotels. I mean, hotels, they're going to go somewhere because they're going to fill beds there. I mean, even in central New York, if you can give them an incentive, but if they're not going to fill beds there, they're never going to make it. But getting back to the board, Steve, you mentioned the whole transparency thing, not knowing what's going on. The legislature, we're the appointing authority to the board, and we got to the point we didn't know what was going on. We started asking questions, and we weren't getting answers. And then once the subpoenas came out, we had no hope of getting any answers, which is why we took the action we did, and why we're here. I think we got a great board. I'm thankful that all these folks didn't get up and walk out on the first day. But getting back, to the board, we do have 2 vacancies, which we're going to have to look at filling. So I'm kind of interested to hear, what your legislation is going to dictate in terms of, who can serve an IDA board. As an elected official, I'll say I don't disagree with you about not having elected officials on the board. I mean, I'm here for.
It's your exit ramp.
I mean, we did this like all of these terms we set to expire, just to get through this period where we can, comply with the.
And it is an accidental board, but I got to tell you, I'm happy with you. I've known some of the members of the other IDA board.
Well, we did put it together very quickly, but we, thought very hard about who we wanted on that board and what types of people we
There's one thing this board has taught everybody is if you are ever on any type of nonprofit board is you better ask questions because you're going to be held accountable. And you can't be just being present for an hour meeting once a month is not enough. And I've said that, and James and I have talked about this in his office, and Mike as well, Martucci, say, look, all these boards that people put you on because you got a nice name or you might have a nice background, that's not the case. This is a perfect example of it.
So in other words, in terms of, in addition to elected officials, I mean, what other requirements are you thinking of? I mean, I know in the past we've got a union representative on the board, you know, there's talk, maybe putting one on again. I don't necessarily agree with it. Some people do.
The only bill that's passing this week or this session that speaks to types of membership is the elected official bill.
Okay.
The assembly too, we'll pass the assembly too.
I'm hopeful. It got to the floor last year. We actually had a problem in the Senate last year with that bill. And so we're going to pass it Thursday on the Senate side. And I think once the assembly sees us pass it, they'll move it across the finish line. That's my hope.
And that, when does that take effect?
Do you know the effective date? I don't know if it's immediately or January 1st. It's within a year.
I mean, where I'm
Immediately,
coming
yeah.
from, you know, I agreed to do this because, you know, obviously we need some kind of connection with county, the legislature, so we can clean up this mess and get things back on a straight and narrow path, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then once we do that, you know, I'm looking to have an independent IDA board that can operate.
My recommendation, Paul, and to the rest of the team is conflict of interest. I'll go back to Orange County Community College. I get 3 appointments. I let them all expire. So I was able to put a whole team in. I put in a lady named Flo Hannes, not a Republican, not a Democrat, none of these guys. I don't think any been to my fundraisers, probably not to any of these guys' fundraisers, and we're all different parties. Flo Hannes served as one of the directors of the nursing department of OC, retired, said, I want to be on the board. What a great thing. OC's one of their centerpiece, their flagship is their nursing program. Doing a wonderful job on there. The other one is Bill Back, a retired banker. Not a conflict of interest, not doing a banking account with Orange County Community College. The other person is Tom Waddell, retired accountant. They were able to go into the books of Orange County Community College with the new president, Christine Young, and really reverse course of what was really over the rate of inflation every year, tax hikes they were looking for us on. And we complained. I would threaten to veto it. We put in this new board. So there really was a non-conflict of interest, to answer your question, Paul. Everybody that wants to be put on there has a conflict of interest. And I'm hearing buzzwords, this guy wants to do it, and this guy that's being considered right now, guy called me last week, said, guess what? My brother's going to be put on the IDA because we are connected with this. That is crazy. So that's why I fight with the county attorney on a regular basis and some legislators saying, we better not be fixing this, wasting 5 great people's time by going back into this again, so we put in the connected people.
I agree. If
on
we do that, we're just erasing everything we've done.
and there's no offense to the people that want to be on the board, but you got to be on this board for the right reason, in my opinion. And this is coming from a guy that doesn't appoint people. And frankly, whether you guys change the law or not you, if they change it to allow me to do it, I'm just telling you, there's systems that could work better than what we've had here, and I think we all know that.
Want me to just run through the rest of these real quick?
I know, Leslie, if you have any questions.
Yeah.
Dr. Odock,
Jimmy
you have
had
any
some,
question, and then we'll open up to the public.
Yeah, so I just want to share just a brief recent example. So I know, Bill, you're familiar. I don't know if it got to the board or trickled up to the board yet, but Project Champlain Hudson Power Express, TDI, basically effectively a power cord from hydropower from Quebec down the Hudson River. About 95% of the line is buried under the Hudson River and will serve New York City with power. And I've been working with the project folks, say for 8 or 9 years on this, because it comes out of the river in Rockland County in like one place in our Senate district. And about a month ago, I get all the agendas for all the IDAs in the Senate district, so I know what's going on. I see the Rockland County IDA, literally I think 48 hours later, 2 days later, on the agenda is a resolution to induce the Champlain Hudson Power Express. Here I am thinking, okay, I've never heard about a pilot for this, or sales tax, or mortgage tax, all 3 of which they were about to approve. And here is a project who has all of its permits, whose route has been approved by all of the state agencies, and is happening. The project is happening. And so why in the world, now pilot you can almost make an argument because it's very hard to assess a project like an underground, underwater utility line. But why in the world would anyone give them sales and mortgage tax exemptions for a project that's happening, for a route that's set in stone? So I called up their lobbyist, said, oh yeah, we're doing that in every county that this line is coming down the Hudson River. So I said, you're also doing Orange and Ulster and all the others? Yes, every single IDA. Said we had a good conversation with the Orange County IDA staff just last week. So I went ballistic. And a couple days later, I'm on the phone with their CFO, went back and forth. I said, look, you can go down this road, but I will blow this up if you do. Within 72 hours, they came back. We're withdrawing sales and mortgage tax exemption requests from your 3 counties. So Orange, you don't even know this yet. Saved you guys in Orange County millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Rockland County was ready to approve this the next day when I got this agenda. And if I didn't do what I did, not just Rockland, but Orange, and also because then there would have been precedent in Rockland County for doing this. And so my next point is, whether it's someone on staff here or someone additional that you hire as sort of like an investigator type role, someone needs to scrutinize these projects when they come through the door to make sure that you guys are not giving out free money to projects that don't need a subsidy. And so that is a very egregious and obvious example of someone who's trying to get away with murder for a project that's happening and trying to get free exemptions. But Medline is another example. Clearly a project that tried to get free taxpayer money that didn't need it. The project still happened. And so there needs to be someone that, and again, the board, you're a volunteer, you have real lives and full-time jobs, and you can't be going around the state and around calling New Jersey brokers, oh, are they really looking at property in New Jersey? They're threatening to leave New York and go to New Jersey. We need someone to do that. There's a New York Times story from maybe a few months ago, 6 months ago, that down in New Jersey, they don't have IDAs. They have a statewide sort of economic development arm that does all the incentivizing. And there was a New York Times investigation. They found out there were, 6 or 8 different companies that threatened to leave New Jersey, and they all cited the same Rockland County business park as where they were going to threaten to relocate. We're going to move all our jobs. We're going to leave New Jersey if we don't get re-upped with these incentives. The New York Times, they called over to the property manager and the folks who run the Rockland County business park in Rockland County. They never heard of any of these companies. They never showed them a single space in any one of these, lots in the business park. They were lying. And every single one of them got an inducement from New Jersey. And so I leave you with that and encourage you to, and look, I've been yelling at ESD to do the same thing. Every hearing, every year, do you have people who go out and talk to realtors in Pennsylvania and New Jersey? They say no. You want to protect taxpayer interests, you've got to suss out when people come here to this table and they're BSing you. And some of that's subjective. I get it. And you might even, get a business or two where you call the bluff and they weren't bluffing and they leave. But if you get 9 out of 10 to pay full taxes and you called their bluff and they were bluffing, that's worth the 1 out of 10 who left Orange County, in my opinion. So that's
So are you suggesting a litmus test based upon wealth, based upon need, based upon, the corporate's tax returns, or they're
in part? I think need is part of the equation. I do. In fact,
it's not cost of doing business, because that's the mantra for economic development was you get these incentives to lower your cost of doing business to make it more affordable throughout the entire Northeast. That was always the mantra for the last 25 years.
The mantra in my mind ought to be, we need to give incentives to businesses who otherwise would not come here without the incentive.
And that's the whole but-for clause that ESD has.
Yeah.
For these incentives, you will not come, and a lot of people sign them. A lot of people put them into their purchase agreements for land. Whether they're enforceable or not, or whether they're true or not, it's up to interpretation. I mean, there's only so much you can.
There's only so much you can do, right? You can't be 1,000% certain every single time when you're scrutinizing these guys. But there are some obvious red flags. Like Medline, there were obvious red flags. Look, if they walked away from Orange County after doing what I did,
You would have been okay with that?
Egg all over my face.
But no, right? Would you have been okay with that?
No, but I had a very, very, very high level of certainty that they were full of you-know-what. And if I didn't do what I did, they would have gotten an incentive. There are times when there are enough red flags where maybe if you're not 1,000% sure, you're 995% sure that if you tell them no, they're still coming anyway. And look, there is some subjectivity to that, but sometimes it's obvious. Sometimes there's a smell test that it just does not pass.
So I'll say something that I'll probably regret saying, okay? But I'll say this tongue in cheek. That will be the end of IDAs. Because if you want us to potentially have that litmus test and or potentially pull back incentives, which in part produce the fees that make IDAs self-sustainable and not knocking at the county legislature for budgets, I think this is going to eventually cease the existence of IDAs within a period of time.
The only way that happens is if every single applicant that comes to you is BSing. And I know that's not happening. You know that's not happening.
But we do see a reduction in it, though.
For the 10%, I'm guessing here, 10, 20, whatever it is percent of applicants who come to you and don't really need an inducement. You're telling me the IDA can't survive with fees from the other 80 to 90% of projects that come in?
Is it 80 or 90%, or we're only getting 10%? I mean, you went both ways. You said maybe only 10% should get it.
No, I said 10% are BSing you. I'm guessing here. 10%, 20% are BSing you. It's not 80% are BSing you. Most who come here, they need the help.
I think these are all things that the IDA board and the new board are taking a hard look at. Right now, they don't have anything on the drawing board right now.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for answers like right here.
No, and I don't think it's possible to give a concrete answer. Although the word concrete is interesting because when the concrete is poured, that's indicative that the structure is being erected. I mean, I had a client who sued over a tax exemption where the construction was already going on. That client lost the case, but won the war. He's the county executive now. And we challenged a wholesale grocery company that was already under construction.
Yeah.
I was the lawyer for it, and we lost the case, but he's a boss now.
I think a cost-benefit analysis, I haven't seen these, and the taxpayers too, this might make it more palatable. Again, like Mike and I are big on economic development. I met you when you first started working with the partnerships. I know your heart is in this type of field. But I think that when we go to these meetings, there was just a couple screenshots on there. They're required to come to the town board where the project's going there. They have a public hearing. This is where it's at, and they roll through it. I have to say, I think it's gotten better over the years because I've seen them reject a lot of them. I've seen a lot of projects. This Goshen Plaza, for instance, had so much red tape tied onto them it's a smaller project, and for them to meet the prevailing wage and having local labor, it wasn't worth it. So they pulled their benefits package from the IDA, which I think is a great project over here. So that's why I don't mind.
But it still doesn't have a supermarket.
Yeah.
Not that the incentives would have gotten them, but there's repercussions for doing it and for not doing it. And we all have to be able to sleep at night saying we tried our best for the best interests of the residents of Orange County to create the jobs and create the tax rate. That's what it's about.
Absolutely.
So having this, I look forward to working with everyone on this, with our sister agencies like Empire State Development, with the regional councils, because I think some of the legislation you're doing is going to make it cut and dry. I mean, I know one thing, and I'll speak for the board, and I'll ask you guys to really back me up on this. We're going to do whatever you allow us to do. We're going to comply 100%.
Yeah. We're
going to be fully transparent. We haven't had a meeting yet that wasn't transparent unless we were talking about personnel or something that involved litigation, which we had to go into executive session. We're going to be fully transparent. Our applications are going to be right on already on the website. If we have to do cost-benefit analysis that guesstimate, working with either the county assessor or the town assessor to guesstimate what the taxes would be or what the abatements would be, right? It's a guess because you know what the property is. It's all based upon assessed value, and many times people don't want to give that, so we'll have to give some. It'll be a plus or minus type thing. We could do cost-benefit analysis.
That might be something where you do work with the county Office of Real Property, where you call up Eric Rusher, who's our commissioner right now, our director.
So we have 100,000 square footer.
What's the tax rate for the town of Woodbury right now, and what can we project out with this type of pilot agreement?
Do you guys prioritize lighted properties, dilapidated properties?
I mean, really, we don't have a business attraction or a business retention arm. We're basically.
No, I understand that, but in like the UTEP, do you get like extra bonus points?
I don't believe so, Bill, do we?
I don't believe so.
I don't believe so.
So, and this is the example I'll give is I live in Cornwall. I drive up to Five Corners all the time, right? And it burns me every time I drive to Five Corners. And you're shaking your head. I think it was a Long John Silver's next to that McDonald's. That's been
Dilapidated for a decade.
dilapidated is putting it kindly,
Yeah.
right?
It'd be better if it wasn't there.
That's right.
Yeah.
You've got, and I understand it's a
It was like that,
moratorium
yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah.
You've got a gas station at Five Corners
The old
that's been
station.
falling apart and,
Yep.
complete eyesore. And how many cars drive through Five Corners every single day? How many potential next business owners, people come in Orange County, want to live to Orange County, see that every single day?
Yeah, sure.
I would give those two properties a pilot every day of the week, 365 days a year,
Just
over
to-
developing open space. Every single day. Something to think
Very
about.
quick, I don't think we get points for allowing those to stay and look like. That's your question, I'll answer that, I don't think yes.
And that's a conversation for the partnership and for the county office too. And, yeah.
I agree with you 100%. What I think when you're viewing a deal, the question is whether it's good for the county. I think there may have been deals that maybe weren't good for the county, but you're just racking up fees so that you can then use those fees to supplement other deals that are in the benefit of yourself. So you don't really care whether it's a good deal or not. All you're doing is just checking a box. And that's the difference that I think we're going to be.
I
right?
agree.
So
That's huge, John.
the fee accumulation is going to be, not for our benefit. It may have been viewed another way. So you're not questioning, James, whether it's a good deal or not. You just want the fee. You'll do 100 bad deals. Because that means you have money to do other things.
Yep.
I assure you, the group that's here is not going to do that. And I don't think the two new folks will be there and will be part of that because I view transparency as critical. I love that our financial statements be part of things, valued for cost-benefit analysis, and any direction we get from Albany, huge. Because I think the only thing that can do is be better. But I think that's the difference in the first example and then the second one. You got to go through Cornwall a little more. I've never been over there.
But there is no how-to book, right? It's not like it's written someplace. There is no crib notes for how to so we're kind of like inheriting what we inherited, but working with what we're working with. I have a vision of having it go down the right road.
The good
so
thing
that
is that
we're going to do the right thing all the time.
Yeah, the good thing is that bars we set. So even I could jump over it, right? So
So let me preface this next one by saying that I don't think that municipal IDA should exist. I think that every county's got an IDA, and I think having municipal IDAs causes all kinds of issues. That said, there's, I think, with few exceptions, putting that horse back in the barn. There are a lot of them, and politics. So that said, another bill that's out there that I'll pose to you is to prohibit you all, as a matter of practice, we will not do business in communities that have their own municipal IDA. And why is that important? And I go back again to the Medline example. Because you get shopping around. You had Medline spend, upwards of a year with the Orange County IDA, looking at sites, starting to talk about what kind of pilot they might be able to get from the Orange County IDA. And then out of the blue, and I have the email where it happened, literally out of left field, Medline sends an email to the Orange County IDA. You know what? We want one-stop shopping in the town of Montgomery. We've been talking to them, and we're going to go to the town of Montgomery IDA now. And by the way, they have lower fees. So if you all have a hard and fast policy, well, we're not even talking to you about doing business in Wallkill. They've got a Wallkill IDA. You want to do business there, go talk to the Wallkill IDA. We're not going to be used as leverage and sort of played against each other to see who gets the better deal for you. And then the second, I think, benefit to this is it would compel what I call ghost IDAs to dissolve. So these are like defunct IDAs that are just like shell operations. They haven't given out a pilot or an inducement in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. I think the only one that exists in Orange County is Port Jervis. They still got a board. They don't meet. They don't do anything, but there's still an IDA there. And if you did what I'm describing, if they want pilots to happen in their community, they'd have to dissolve. So otherwise there's that overlap and you're not doing business in communities that have overlap. So there is a bill to do this statewide, but I think it just makes sense. Doesn't harm any inter-county competitive edge that we're talking about and we're concerned about. And I think it cleans up some of the bad behavior that does occasionally happen here in Orange County.
So this bill would eliminate municipal IDAs, or it would
No, I wish I could pass a bill like that.
prohibit having overlap?
It would prohibit it would basically do away with the problems that exist in the overlap. So it would prohibit county IDAs from doing business where there's a municipal.
So like if Port Jervis right now is a company that comes there right now, what James is saying, if they want an incentive, like, look, you got your own IDA. So you don't have an IDA, then come to the county IDA.
The one issue that I see right off the bat, just speaking out loud, is that some of these local IDAs don't feel comfortable with bonding. They don't feel comfortable, they've never done it, they don't feel comfortable with it, so they kick it, I don't say up, they kick it because they don't have either the consultants on board or the staff or the know-how or the expertise. So if there's ever anything that becomes bonded, whether it's manufacturing, affordable housing, the things that are eligible for, whether it's tax exempt bond financing or straight bond financing, they sometimes kick. And that's one of the issues I think that you'll see. I've seen it a couple times throughout Orange County, but I'm sure it's prevalent throughout the state where, I don't want to call them smaller, but the ones that don't have the experience, they say, you know what, we don't feel comfortable with it, we don't have the right consultants on board, go to the county side to do the bonding.
And if you decide to go down this road, you can, I think, provide for an exception for what you're describing, right?
Because like right now, we have one in front of us, which is correct me if I'm wrong, Walk Hill Properties?
Walk Hill Owner
Walk Hill
LLC.
Owner LLC.
Walk
Which is
Hill
an
Living
affordable
Center.
housing complex in
You
town.
mentioned that before.
Yeah, so
Has the Orange County IDA done much I don't remember much residential.
we have some bonding on our books for senior housing and some stuff that's done historically.
Not much. though.
Not much.
And that's something you're entertaining now?
Well, it's something that the Walk Hill IDA asked us to get involved.
I serve as a conduit for tax exempt bond
tax
financing.
exempt
So
bond
it's more a conduit situation than anything else.
Change of ownership / renovations, those type of things. So it's something that is out there. It's not something we've induced yet or anything. But it's something that is out there, and I can see some of that happening maybe in, like, say, some of our cities, like Newburgh and or Middletown.
Sure.
If they don't feel comfortable with the bonding aspect of it. Many times these affordable / senior / rent type houses, they go directly to the municipality, and the municipality negotiates their pilot without even coming to the IDA. So, growing up, there were certain municipalities who just check the box. You want 45B, boom, just check the box and you got it. You never even had to go through a public process. I think that's less these days, at least around here. But certain ones of those go directly and they negotiate that directly with the town or village board, and they get them automatically, or I say automatic, they vote on it and they get it, and we don't even have it as a listed project. There's a lot of those, I'll say senior housing. Lately, it's more senior housing than affordable housing, but those type of things.
A lot of it's actually done in partnership with the State Housing Finance Authority.
Yeah.
Last time I was Senate Housing Committee Director, so I dealt with the bond financing at the local level for years.
So most of the time, we won't get involved with them, or I haven't seen us getting involved.
Next one I've got, right now you probably know that state law allows for you all to claw back incentives when there's effectively a breach of contract. There's a bill to require a clawback when we're promising 500 jobs and it turns out, 3 years later, there are only 150 jobs. And that's something you all could do now on your own. One example I'll give, it was about 5-6 years ago, Orange County Choppers, before the latest saga, they had a breach of contract with the Orange County IDA, where effectively they, I think, sold the property to someone, and there's a time-told record story about it. They were 8 years into their 10-year pilot, and the response from the IDA was when asked about clawing back the incentive for breach of contract, they said, well, there are only 2 years left. We're not going to bother. That was the response. I think that of all the things that probably piss off the public when it comes to incentives, it's when people are allowed to keep the big tax break they got without living up to any of the promises that were offered, right? So that's, in my mind, that's one of the easier ones, something to consider. And another easy one, and I think you're informally, at least the last board, as of a couple years ago, was informally already doing this, but to formalize prohibiting incentives, you mentioned Langdon before, pouring concrete, to projects that are already under construction. And the example I'll give here is, I think they're Remy out of Warwick, they're a lighting company or something, right? This is about 3 years ago, they were expanding, already in the midst of their expansion. They've already poured the concrete and I think, started erecting the walls, and they were seeking a pilot for this expansion at their site. And I had just recently, gone public and very excited about a very similar situation elsewhere. And the IDA staff said, don't talk to us, talk to Scoofus. Now, that's what they were telling us, at least, trying to basically, pointing the finger, if you want to figure this out, you need to get him off our back. And I think I was called every day, my office was called every day by the applicant or his lawyer, probably for about 3 weeks. I wasn't talking to him because it clearly didn't need incentive. And they went public. They went to the Times Herald Record. We're threatening to leave. We're going to take all of our jobs. And now it's 3 years later. They're fully built out. All the jobs are still in Warwick. They are now paying full taxes. And it's because it is absolutely absurd even to entertain the idea of incentivizing a project that's already being built out. And so I think informally, the board was already doing that as of a couple of years ago when this all started bubbling over. But I would recommend that, and this is another bill that we've got up in Albany, to formalize that in your bylaws, sort of your standard operating procedures, so that anyone who's thinking about it can see that and knows, I'm not even going to bother. I think that's all of them that I've got.
There's a lot of examples like that. Early in my term, my first term as county executive, there was a car dealership that was going for an expansion. And they're nice guys, and they were going for an expansion, and they put an application to the IDA, which I believe was going to be approved, and they were under the guise of being a tourist attraction. And, the guy's still mad at me to this day, doesn't talk to me, and I'm probably, going to get in a fight with him one day, because every time I see him, it's not very pleasant. But they ended up not leaving, and that's what it comes down to. And I am Mr. Economic Development, but it's got to come at a cost, and I think we all are. And I think, there's a huge mixture. I've mentioned wages, but you also will need to make sure that we're getting the public, that local community. And there's some towns that are more progressive and more open-minded than others, and they're doing well. I mean, we're here in Goshen. I think that the Legoland deal that Goshen got, town of Goshen, their annual budget for the town of Goshen is less than $10 million a year. They are going to start off every year getting over $1 million from Legoland. For any town supervisor or county executive or town board member, that is a huge influx of money. So you're going to get over 10%, and there's a sliding scale going up every year. I think that's a good example.
Yeah.
And I think that's a tourist that's a legitimate tourist attraction, not a car dealership. So. We're excited about the 5 of you. We really appreciate you coming in here. We like what the legislature has been doing to address and do a course change. And, obviously, like everybody else, we're waiting on bated breath to see what happens with the criminal end on this. If there is something, the rumors are obviously flying off the shelves, but we'll see what happens in time.
What I'll do is, and I agree with everything that Steve just said, what I'll do is I'll have it sort of to look at in your face. I'll email over maybe to Bill to share with the board all the things that we talked about here. And look, we hope you'll seriously consider them. I know you're dealing with stuff up your eyeballs right now, but maybe in the next short while, you can give us a sense, okay, like this makes sense, this doesn't make sense, we're looking to do this, but maybe a little bit down the road when we catch our breath, we don't want to do this. What we would like to do at some point relatively soon is be out there, locking arms, holding hands, and saying, we are all on board with these reforms on behalf of the taxpayers of Orange County. We don't want to be out there yelling at you to do things. We want to be out there sort of together saying we're doing things. I suspect that you all would probably prefer that as well.
Can we get a copy of the legislation that you're voting on?
Yeah. I'm happy to show you.
It would be helpful, like on projects, on the short-term projects that we are inducing, that if you are in favor of them, as loud as you speak against things that you're not in favor of, speak in favor of the ones that we are doing.
Very good.
So, leading, showing that by example, I think helps us understand it a little bit better than just scratching your head, not having all the information, wondering why. So
That's fair. And if there are particular projects that you think you want to put on my radar to try and elicit support, please do.
Yeah, I mean,
No, I hear it. By the way, we're sitting here, I guess, probably starting on completely opposite ends of this. So, when I took the oath of office January 1st, this was like really one of the first things we talk about before kind of all the hit the fan here. And, right, so I come from starting from the complete other side of this, right? In terms of saying, look, firsthand from a guy that created 600 jobs here in this county and knows exactly what it's like to drag the body up the stairs every day, in terms of meeting with success in a very, very difficult economic climate that, frankly, the state has caused in terms of the problems, not this county. But yeah, I'm with you. You know what I mean? So look, I look forward to absolutely the GTI is a great example of that project. I was, in writing in full support of that project, and I think that we can certainly look to do that because, I think the goal here really is twofold. One is to, make sure that we give you the tools necessary to be successful, pick out those projects, attract great projects here, attract great jobs here, the capitalization piece that you talked about, and sharing, sharing the tax burden. I get all of it. I mean, so I think that's definitely where we want to be. We want to be assistive to you in any way that we can in terms of moving forward. Because you're at a key spot right now. You are really the board that gets to remold this.
I don't want to speak for Mike or the rest of us, but I know you guys are busy, but perhaps scheduling of an annual meeting or biannual or quarterly with, not you guys are busy, but representatives of your teams. And I don't want to speak for the rest of us, but things like that where Mike has committed, he uses the word transparency, it just bangs it out every meeting. And that's, I'm there. And I think we all are.
I think even if it's not like maybe an end of the year summary, before these two guys start their legislative session, say, hey guys, this could really help us, or this is going to kill us. Like Mike's saying, look, we don't mind if you guys say, look, this is an economic development killer, but because we're not going to grant everything, but so maybe that as we go through this corrective action now, might be more meetings. We might be meeting in 2 months from now. Just say, hey, how we doing? What do you need from us? Or it might be an end of the year type of thing. How we doing? What's your summary?
I'd like to give some of the other board members.
Absolutely.
Has there any comments on that? Dr. Odock, anything that you'd like to add or any questions that you may have?
Don't wake up the baby. Don't wake up the baby.
You're still muted, sir.
Are we muting him or no?
We can't hear you, Doctor. No.
There we go.
Yes.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay. Yeah. In our subsequent meetings in the past, I've always emphasized transparency. We have to build trust from the public, and so that is the way we should go. We come in with open minds, every one of us, we all come in with open minds. And the best is for us to continue to do that. Everything we do should be transparent. There's that. And from that point, we'll have the public trusting us. Otherwise, it will continue to be the same thing. So thank you very much coming in today. I appreciate that very well. Joining our meeting. Thank you again. Yes.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you,
Odock.
Jonathan. Congratulations again.
Yes, Bill.
Two quick things, just 2 points that were raised earlier. To the county executive's point about cost-benefit analysis, the Orange County IDA has been doing those for the last 6 or 7 years. Some are a little more simplified using a system in Form Analytics, but some are more for larger projects or more in-depth, like KPMG did one, an in-depth study for Lego Land.
like
So we have those available. They're on our website under each project,
I'd like
but I'll
to see
share
more
them.
KPMG independent, because the ones we saw is just literally what the steps would be with the tax break and without the tax break.
No, they're far more in-depth, and usually they say how many times the value of the incentives given, the economic output is as a result. So we can share those, but I want to make sure you're clear on that. And one other item that impacts pilots that's relevant to that discussion that hasn't come up yet is local construction labor. I think you all know that 485B is available to most new commercial construction projects. For those that don't know what that is, whatever your new taxes are going to be, you start at 50% of that, and over the course of 10 years, it goes up 5% each year. It's available to everyone as of right. Some school districts opt out for the local municipality, but IDAs can do 485B equivalents as well. And the real reason that they tend to do that is, one, to provide predictability of payments for the applicant. They do want to know that, but the other is local labor. If you go through an IDA like ours, the Orange County IDA, you're required to have 85% local labor. When you don't do that, you can do whatever you like. And I'll just use two examples and not picking on our IDA. Montgomery, for example, I know you're critical of, like many people, of the Amazon, but the Amazon pilot there, but one great thing that came out of it is more than 70 million, close to $80 million of local contracts were awarded because they had to comply with that. Medline, for example, that's gone elsewhere, and we, of course, don't track it the same way, but my understanding is over 80% of what they're doing in Medline is actually not local. So it's just another factor as to why, even if we're just matching a 45B, which applicants can get as of right, it's another reason why we use the IDA for these types of incentives.
The company that the legislature hired or the IDA hired to give you guys the revelation that ended up being the shot heard across the world in March, that was a private accounting firm, right? Who hired them? The IDA? Yeah. Okay. But that independent or whatever that group is the one that revealed some troubling news that got us to where we all are today. That's why, in my opinion, I believe not just having him tell me how great the project is, but having a real independent source. I loved when KPMG came in and did an independent source. They don't work for anybody. They're hired to do literally their credibility on the line. So anyway.
I think you're referencing what's important.
Yeah,
correct. To our consulting attorney to ask for a presentation to the legislature to help try to meet their request for information.
Because that presentation has revealed a lot of things that were suspected. I think that Jimmy brought up.
And it wasn't completed.
Yeah.
So at this point, the county legislature here, I'd like to recognize Jimmy O'Dowd to be
This won't happen. You didn't have me at the table, all right, with my expertise as being the former executive director, with a lot to offer you, Senator, with you have the pen up there to create new laws. All right, just let me correct one thing you said earlier about 9 years and not being invited to the IBA. So maybe it was 8 years. If it was 9 years, I was still there.
So maybe it was 8 years then.
There you go.
Very sorry.
Corrected to the record. All right. And one of the other things you said, you didn't want to talk about informal stuff, but when I was the executive director, every pilot that came to us, every project, had to go to the school district, get a letter from the school district, and get a letter from the town board. Otherwise, they didn't get it. So you might say it was informal, because it might not have been in our bylaws, but it was formal.
Is it happening now?
I'm talking about when I was here.
Letters from the municipal leaders we get every time.
That's why.
I don't care about it 10 years ago.
I'm just correcting the record, right? Of what you said earlier.
I'm never referring to things that happened a decade
I
ago.
didn't interrupt you.
You tried to, but go ahead. Yeah.
But you not only tried to, you continued to.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So it wasn't informal, it was formal. All right, that's what we did back then. What the current IDA is doing is going back to that, formalizing everything. That's why you guys are there. Remind you that report to the legislature. Okay, we're the oversight committee. We're proud of the work you're doing. Continue to support you, get the training you need on schools and towns. They got to come before that. Right? So they agree on the sign for the pilot. But elected officials, I disagree with you, Senator, on that with one particular thing, especially in the county. Each IDA is a little different, or at least here, with the legislative being the oversight. I think it's important that you have somebody from the legislature, not a mayor or a supervisor as they did in the past, but a member of the legislature, whether it's the chair of the Economic Development Committee or someone on that committee, so we have direct contact.
Answer your question.
I'm not finished.
Okay. So the answer.
I tried to ask you a question, and then you don't interrupt me. Okay? It's not fun. I was courteous to you.
I asked to ask you a question. I said no.
I was courteous to you, and you just keep interrupting.
Go ahead.
I don't need the permission to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead to everybody else here. Okay?
You're embarrassing yourself, but go ahead.
I'm not. You're embarrassing yourself by keep interrupting. Might be able to do that in Albany, but not here in Orange County. So the elected official, I think it's important, Michael, that somebody like Paul or someone on the Economic Development Committee has that back and forth with everybody on the IDA board. So we don't have a lack of oversight, so don't lose track and get into those same situations we have. We stopped the bleeding, so that's the main point, right? Went from 17 million down to 6 million, so that's important, right? Training, like I said, the legislature's working on getting you training. Whatever you need from the legislature, I think we've been very supportive of it. We're going to continue to do that. As far as CNS, I'm sorry you lost that lawsuit. I was on the other side. This is something the Senate could look at as far as cleaning up some of the language and some of the things currently IDAs are allowed to do, like giving hotels incentives because they're so-called tourism. So you have creative IDAs that look at the law specifically and then interpret it to their own liking to give projects that might not be entitled to it, but legally they are. As far as shoveling in the ground, that's what happened with CNS. Legally, we were allowed to do that, so you can clean up the language up in the Senate, or we can do it here in the legislature, so that doesn't happen again. It shovels in the ground. But legally back then, obviously, lawsuit, we were legally allowed to do. We had a creative attorney, Phil Prodi, who him and I created the accelerator. Not what you see now, but one accelerator. Shopping around. Here's what happens. You explained it pretty good, that local IDs come to the county rather than shop around, going to the local, getting a tax benefit from them and trying to come to the county and get a better one. It was my experience that local IDs would just say, we can't handle it, go to the county. And in many instances, we shared the fees with the local IDAs. Clawbacks, KPMG, we started that to audit, making sure they created the jobs, making sure they were paying their taxes. In fact, we got the first clawback out in Port Jervis at the fragrance company, right? We clawed back 125 grand. So that's continuing today. So county exec's office, as far as you mentioned, an independent person. This is how it worked when I was there, right in the county exec's office. So there's advantages to that big time. That companies that come here, that you're trying to attract, know they got the county exec's here right off the bat. You don't have to have an extra meeting to get to the county exec's office. You have an independent person. So I'm for keeping you there, right? That's how I see it. Keeping somebody right in the county exec's office. So. Legoland. So it went from 30 years down to 20 years. The 2 years is that construction. So it's really a 20-year pilot. So legislature got that now. And the old board. So I will give them credit, the old board, for getting that down from the 30 to 20. So they did do at least one good thing. Thank you.
Well,
Any comment, Mike?
the one thing that we've also done, and I think is the economic and education. Our agent, Bill, who's also the director of economic development county, attends. I also attend as well in case there's any questions of the county legislature to the IDA, if I can answer them directly, or if we need to bring it back, at least I've committed to that, or however many times you need me to come to that, I will come to that or any other committee meeting, depending upon time of day. Obviously, I have a full-time job. So with that, I hope that has opened up some transparency itself as well. So, James.
Yeah, no, thank you. And many of those points are well taken. I do want to clarify one thing because this is very important. And Langdon, you can, if you choose to, you can chime in on this as well. The county legislature, this is important for the board to understand. The county legislature is the appointing authority to the IDA. The county legislature is not the oversight authority of the IDA. The IDA has one oversight authority, and that's the ABO, the Authorities and Budget Office. The county legislature cannot demand you do anything. They do not provide any formal oversight. If they request you come and speak to them for updates, you can, if you so choose, go and speak to them for updates. They appoint members. That is it. That is the state law.
Mr. Chairman.
The county legislature has nothing to do. They cannot check for your compliance. They cannot, take you to court if you're, not filing the right records with the Paris system. That is all those are all functions of the ABO because they are the oversight entity for IDAs in the state, not the county legislature.
I may be quibbling over small things, and maybe it's just how I think versus subpoena power and everything else. I think there's lots of people with oversight authority. I think the state controller's got oversight authority. I think the ABO's got oversight authority. And I think the county legislature, to the extent that they can subpoena people, have oversight authority. And ultimately, look, I report to the county executive. He solely determines whether I wake up with a job tomorrow morning. If at the end of the day, I tell Legislator Skevich and Legislator O'Donnell, go pound salt when they ask me to appear for their committee, they have oversight of me in a different way. They can reduce my salary, among other things. So oversight, I think at the end of the day, the IDA has to be independent. But I do think the legislature has an oversight role.
Well, going back to one simple thing, guys, we're all here because something bad probably happened. And we alluded to 17 million, 13 million, then going down to 6 million. Who the hell is going to be accountable for this? Because the taxpayers, when they read a headline, and if there is some type of thing coming down from a grand jury or from the attorney general or the district attorney, the taxpayers are going to have a big question mark and saying, who the hell is responsible for allowing this to happen?
And I think in some ways, we exercised oversight when we removed the board and put in a new one. I mean,
They're the appointing authority.
Right.
And that's the one thing-
That's an oversight.
That's the one thing you can do.
So I mean, it's the oversight.
It's ongoing. I got a phone call, the AUSA and my clients. So it's not just you.
And I'll just conclude my thoughts on this by saying, so either take Jimmy O'Donnell's word for it, or you can have me point to state law, which is very contrary to what Jimmy O'Donnell is saying when it comes to oversight.
I think what we would do is we would rely on counsel, right? Not to trust or distrust either one of you. I mean, obviously, we're going to do the right thing. That's the one thing that this board has said all along. And when we do not disagree with counsel or want additional opinions of counsel, we will seek them, whether it's from the ABO's counsel, to our counsel, to a hired counsel, to you name it. So we'll leave it at that, and it's something we determined today. I know one thing, we're going to be fully transparent. We're going to do the right thing. We're going to fix this, and you're going to be able to, in a period of time, say, the Orange County IDA is doing the right thing, and it's an asset to the constituents of our 116 square miles. That's our canvas, okay? We want to work with every municipality, and we want to maximize capital investment that we can have in this county. We want to invest. We want to have the jobs created, but more importantly, the commercial tax base needs to grow. If we want it to be affordable here, it has to grow. There's many ways to let it grow, to make it grow. And demand may have that happen regardless of inducement or not. But when it comes down to it, that is what's on the top level of, besides transparency and fixing this, is ideally resting assured on that. Because I do not, and I say we do not want to see the unaffordability deter people from living. And I think it's a good goal. Whether it's attainable or not, we're going to try our damnedest in doing it, you know?
I hear it. The thing I would add from I think what I just learned from Jimmy and the exchange is that it sounds like there were some good practices that were in place 10 years ago that somehow have fallen off the table over the last 10 years. So I think a lot of this is going to be, lessons from history in terms of looking back at some of the good practices and merely just putting them back in play.
And just
some of the things that we came to talk about today were things that were happening a decade ago,
Yeah.
And just my final comments, you guys, I want to, again, just thank the five of you
Yeah,
for
thank
being
you
on
all.
this board.
Yeah.
And I'm happy, I think everybody, the legislature, everybody's now taking corrective action, and we're all on the same page here. But again, I know this is a thankless job, and there's a lot of pressure on you. The fact that you guys are fixing a mess. And I know some of you, I don't know a lot of you really well, but again, I want to thank you again for this.
I'm sorry this took so long. I know it was but I think every conversation we had was very important. With that, and if there's any other questions from the board, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Voice vote, all in favor, aye? Aye. All right, with that, we got us out and close out our Zoom process, and we'll close out our meeting. Our next scheduled meeting is the third Tuesday in June, whatever.
June 15th.
June 15th. Ooh, early. All right, cool.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Now I can go to my son's baseball game.